Richard, what's the worst thing a candidate has ever said to you at a job interview?
I can remember interviewing a candidate for a job role at my company, and they walked into the interview room. I said, "Hello, welcome to the interview. Please take a seat. How are you today?" And they said, "Hello and welcome to the Career Success Podcast. My name is Richard McMunn. I have been a hiring manager and recruitment expert for more than 30 years. And in today's podcast, we will teach you how to pass a job interview. We are going to discuss everything there is to know about job interviews, the questions you will get asked, how to impress in your interview, the success signs to look out for, and also the things you should never do in your interview. If you have a job interview coming up, make sure you watch this podcast. And don't forget to tell me the name of the position you are being interviewed for in the comment section below the video so I can give you some extra help. Okay, let's get straight into the podcast.
Richard, be honest, do you think job interviews are actually fair?
No, I don't believe job interviews are fair at all. However, it's the only way an employer can assess a candidate's suitability for a job role. Job interviews are unfair because you can have a candidate who has the qualifications needed for the position, the certifications required, and they have a track record of success. But when you put them in front of an interview panel, they crumble because they get so nervous. That's why job interviews are unfair. If you remember, we interviewed a guy called Jordan for a position at our company. During the interview, he was so nervous, the majority of employers would have said no to him. However, we gave him a chance and he actually proved to be one of the best people we have ever employed at our company. So even though job interviews are unfair, it's the only way an employer can assess a candidate's suitability. So I always say to candidates, practice your answers before the interview, conduct a mock interview so you get to feel the pressure you will be under, and just go for it. You have nothing to lose. Learning to pass job interviews is a life skill you must develop.
Do you think interviewers already know who they want to hire before the interview even starts?
I believe in 95% of job interviews, the employer does not know who is going to get offered the job. And that's great news for the candidate because it means it's a level playing field. Of course, there are some larger organisations who know who they're going to offer the job to, but they have to go through a selection process. But in 95% of interviews, it's a level playing field, which is good news for the candidate.
Richard, in simple terms, what is the real purpose of a job interview?
The purpose of a job interview is twofold. Number one is to assess a candidate's suitability for the job role. The employer will have created what is called a job description. And on that job description, there will be a list of skills, qualities, and competencies needed in the role to do the job properly. So the interviewer will assess the candidate's ability to do the job properly against that job description. The second purpose of a job interview is to see whether the candidate will fit into the team. That's really important. It's okay if a candidate has the qualifications, skills, qualities, and competencies to do the job properly, but if the hiring manager doesn't think they will fit into the team, they won't get offered the job.
How much preparation is enough for a job interview?
That's a really good question. I see every day on this YouTube channel people posting saying, I'm here 10 minutes before my job interview. That's not enough time to prepare. So for example, if a candidate was informed on a Friday that they have a job interview coming up on the Monday, I would personally recommend they spend the entire weekend preparing. On the Saturday, I would research the company and also research the interview questions I was likely going to get asked at the job interview for my particular role. On the Sunday, I would prepare my answers and also conduct a mock interview. I would sit down in front of a mirror and practice giving my answers. So 2 days preparation, 2 days full preparation, I believe is sufficient to be fully prepared for a job interview.
What are the most common questions that come up at a job interview?
All hiring managers have a set number of questions that they will ask for all job interviews. The most common questions are, tell me about yourself or introduce yourself. That will normally be the first question asked at a job interview. And the good news is you can use the same answer for either question. Hiring managers will then say, why do you want this job? And that question is designed to assess the candidate's motivation for applying for the position. So the hiring manager wants to hear them say how passionate they are about the job role and industry. Other questions include, what are your greatest strengths and what is your biggest weakness? The strengths question is designed to assess the candidate's relevancy with the job description. And the weaknesses question is designed to see whether the candidate is being honest about their weaknesses, because we all have weaknesses, and also their desire to improve. So you have to give a weakness and tell the hiring manager what you are doing to improve on that weakness. Other questions include, how would you deal with a conflict with a coworker? Lots of people fail their interviews on that question. You must say that you would work hard with the coworker to find a resolution that overcomes the conflict. Do not say, I would inform my manager about the conflict so they could deal with it. And other questions include, why should we hire you? And behavioral questions, tell me about a time you worked on a team, and also tell me about a time when you had to overcome a challenging problem. Those are the most common questions asked in all job interviews.
So what are the biggest mistakes you see people make in job interviews?
Having interviewed hundreds of candidates over the years, the biggest mistakes they make include negativity. That is a big one. So one of the more common questions again in a job interview is, why do you want to leave your current job? Most candidates think that's an invitation to speak negatively or disrespectfully about their former or current employer. If you are negative, you won't get hired. Do not be negative or disrespectful about anyone in your job interview. That's the first biggest mistake. The second biggest mistake is not knowing what you will be required to do in the job role. So for example, a really difficult question that catches lots of people out is, tell me what you expect to be doing in this role on a day-to-day basis. If the candidate hasn't read the job description, they can't answer that question and they won't get hired.
What interview advice is outdated but still being given today?
The one piece of advice that is out there and that I believe is wrong and outdated is this: just be yourself at the job interview. No, don't just be yourself, because a job interview is a professional assessment. When you go to work, you have to perform to the best of your ability. You have to do a really good job. So when you go to an interview, be prepared and don't forget to sell yourself. You wouldn't do that normally on a day-to-day basis, sell yourself. But at a job interview, you have to do that. Don't just be yourself. Show the hiring manager you really want the job, you are passionate about your work, and more importantly, you are fully prepared to do a great job for the company.
What's the one piece of interview advice that people are told to follow that you strongly disagree with?
The one piece of advice I really disagree with, and I hear this time and time again, is don't dress professionally for your job interview. I think that is wrong. It is bad advice. The reason why it is bad advice is because if I went to a job interview and dressed as I normally would do on a day-to-day basis, I won't get hired. I wear gym equipment, I wear a waterproof jacket most of the time because I'm always going out walking. That is the real me. But the majority of employers don't want to see the real me. They want to see me make an effort at a job interview. And that's what you should do. Make an effort in your appearance. If you dress smart, I believe it tells the hiring manager you care, you want to get the job, and more importantly, you have high personal and professional standards.
What's the biggest lie that candidates tell themselves why they didn't get the job?
The interviewer didn't like me. I believe that is the number one biggest lie, because the interviewer is looking for someone who can do the job properly. I have hired people before that I think to myself, I would never be your friend. You're not the type of person that I would mix with outside of work. However, if you can do the job, I will happily hire you and pay you a good salary. So lots of people say to themselves, I didn't get the job because the interviewer didn't like me. I would say the reason they didn't get the job is because they didn't, at the interview, demonstrate that they had the competencies, strengths, and attributes needed to do the job.
Richard, what's the worst thing a candidate has ever said to you at a job interview?
I can remember interviewing a candidate for a job role at my company, and they walked into the interview room. I said, "Hello, welcome to the interview. Please take a seat. How are you today?" And they said, "I'm very well. So what does your company do here?" That was the worst thing they could have said. Immediately, I knew they were not going to get offered the job. In fact, I cut the interview short because they had told me basically they had done no research into my company and they were only interested in a paycheck. That is why it is vital a candidate researches the company before their interview.
Do qualifications matter more than personality in job interviews?
Qualifications are very important for a job interview. However, personality is much more important. Let me explain why. Qualifications will enable you to do the job properly, but personality will enable you to collaborate with your co-workers, deliver good client and customer service, and also solve problems effectively. You can have all the qualifications needed for a job role, but if you don't have the right personality and you can't work seamlessly with your co-workers, you won't get the job. So I believe qualifications are 25% important and personality 75%. Personality is far more important to me as a hiring manager.
Is body language important in an interview?
Absolutely. Body language and interview technique are really important during job interviews. Remember this, the hiring manager has never seen you before and they will form an opinion of you within the first 7 seconds of the interview starting. Let me explain why body language is very important. Let's assume you are interviewing me for a job role at your company. I walk into the interview room, I sit down in the chair like this.
Yeah, I wouldn't hire you.
Why?
You don't look interested.
I don't look interested, exactly. So you must be professional. Sit upright in the chair and rest the palms of your hands on top of your knees and smile.
Is honesty always the best policy in a job interview?
Honesty is definitely the best policy in a job interview. However, be very careful what you disclose. For example, I get quite irritated quickly. I would never say in a job interview, that is my biggest weakness. Instead, I would say, my biggest weakness is that I sometimes get impatient when the progress of my work is slowed down by the inaction of others, such as external contractors or suppliers. That's a clever answer because it tells the hiring manager, I am the type of person who wants to complete my work quickly so I can then move on to the next task or project. So honesty is important, but be careful what you disclose.
Should candidates ever admit that they're nervous?
I always advise to not say you are nervous at a job interview because you are then drawing attention to it. You are making it a bigger problem than it actually is. Remember this, a job interview is just a meeting between you and a potential employer to see whether you want to work for them and they want to hire you for the job role. So my advice is don't draw attention to your nervousness. However, if you really want to mention it, just say it once at the start of your interview. When the hiring manager says to you, "Welcome to the interview, how are you today?" you can say, "I am very well. However, I am a little bit nervous, but I'm very excited about the prospect of potentially working for your company." It's okay to mention it once at the start of your job interview, but then focus on being positive.
In your experience, what are the 3 toughest questions to answer?
The 3 toughest questions to answer are, tell me about yourself. It's one of the toughest questions because it's the start of the interview. That's why I always say, practice your answer, keep your response to approximately 60 seconds and talk about the following 4 things: your skills that match the job description, your educational background and any experience you can bring to the company, details of accomplishments you have attained in your life so far, and finish your answer with the type of person you are and what you will do in the role to make a positive difference. Those 4 things stand for SEAT, S-E-A-T. And of course, you can easily remember my SEAT structure for Tell Me About Yourself because you will be sitting down on a seat at your interview. The second toughest question is, what is your biggest weakness? It's a tough question because people say, I don't have any weaknesses, but we all do have weaknesses. You have to be careful which weakness you give, but also mention in your answer what you are doing to improve on your weakness. And the final toughest question, number 3, is, why should we hire you? You have to give an answer that makes you stand out from the other candidates. The best way to do that is not give one reason why they should hire you, but instead give 4.
Is it possible to recover from a bad interview answer?
Yes, absolutely. The interviewer will ask you a series of different questions. It's okay to give 1 or 2 poor answers. The best thing to do is, if you give a bad answer, you realize it, acknowledge it. I can remember years ago when I took my driving test, I made a mistake in the test. I knew I had made a mistake and I said to the driving examiner, I've just made a mistake. I've realized I am sorry. I still passed the test, but telling the examiner that I had made the mistake informed them that I was aware of it. So at a job interview, you can say, I do apologize, that wasn't a particularly good answer. And you can then give another one if you want to. You can move on and give an improved answer. So don't just ignore it, acknowledge the bad answer and then move on again with positivity.
Is it better to give short answers or detailed stories?
For the majority of interview questions, I recommend the candidate keeps their answers to approximately 30 seconds in duration. Keep them short and concise and to the point. Answer the question. So that works for the majority of questions. Where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? Why do you want this job? However, there are some questions that I believe need a more in-depth answer. Tell me about yourself, as I previously stated, should be approximately 60 seconds in duration. For behavioural interview questions, they need to be in-depth, longer answers. Tell me about a time when you worked as part of a team. Tell me about a time when you had to overcome a difficult challenge. And tell me about a time when you had to overcome a conflict with a co-worker. Behavioural questions need in-depth answers, stories.
How should someone answer, what are your salary expectations?
The salary expectations interview question must be answered with confidence. Before the job interview, I recommend the candidate goes onto the website glassdoor.com and they find out what the salary range is for their job role and industry. Before the interview, they should also have 2 salary figures in mind. The first one is the salary they are going to ask for at the job interview. The second figure is the absolute lowest they are prepared to work for. Remember this, The salary negotiation question has to work for both the employer and the candidate. So it's a negotiation. So when they say to you, what are your salary expectations? Say this: I have researched the salary range for this job role and industry. The range is between, for example, $60,000 and $70,000. Based on my experience and what I can bring to the role, I would be comfortable with a salary of $69,000 and the opportunity to have it reviewed annually based on my contribution to the team. The hiring manager might then come back and say, that's too much. I am prepared to offer you $65,000. If you have decided on the absolute lowest amount you are prepared to work for and it matches what they are offering, you can accept it.
Should a candidate ever challenge the hiring manager or push back on a question?
I think in absolute rare situations where the hiring manager asks an inappropriate question, yes, they should push back and say, no, I'm not prepared to answer that question. It's not relevant to my suitability to perform the job role competently. Questions such as, are you in a relationship? Do you plan to have a family? Are you married? Those type of questions are not relevant to a candidate's suitability for the job role. In fact, if someone asked me those questions in a job interview, I wouldn't want to work for the company. So yes, if you do ever push back or challenge the hiring manager, do it calmly, professionally, and respectfully.
What's your honest opinion about AI tools being used to prepare interview answers?
I believe artificial intelligence can be used effectively for when preparing for job interviews, but it should never be used to create interview answers. Don't do it. I am hearing lots of employers say they are hearing candidates give ChatGPT answers in interviews and they are getting rejected because of that. So don't use AI to create your answers. Instead, use AI to research the company before your job interview.
What are the clearest signs that an interview's gone well?
The two clearest signs a job interview has gone well are as follows. Number one, the interview goes on longer than anticipated, and during the interview, the hiring manager asks follow-up questions. That's a really good indication they are seriously considering offering you the job. The second clearest sign, and this is a great one, if they say to you at the end of the interview, come and meet the team. If they do that, that is a really good sign you might be about to get offered the job.
Should a candidate ask questions at the end of a job interview?
Yes, absolutely. A candidate should ask smart questions at the end of their job interview. So whenever I interview somebody for a job role at my company, I will say at the end, do you have any questions for me? I am listening to the type of questions the candidate asks. For example, if they say to me, I have a holiday coming up soon, can I have time off? Or are there any benefits that come with the job role? I will probably not offer them the position because they are clearly more interested in what they can get out of the job. However, if a candidate asks smart questions, I will probably offer them the position. Examples of smart questions include, can you tell me more about the team I would be a part of in this role and their responsibilities? What advice would you give to the successful candidate who wants to excel in their work for your company? And another smart question a candidate can ask is this: what is it that the top performing employees do in this company to achieve success? I recommend a candidate asks 3 smart questions at the end that show the hiring manager they want to do a great job in the role.
What should candidates do immediately after their job interview?
Immediately after the job interview has finished and the candidate has got home, I recommend they send the hiring manager a thank you email. This keeps the candidate at the forefront of the hiring manager's mind when they are deciding who to offer the job to. They should say something like this: Dear sir or madam, thank you for giving me the opportunity today to interview for the position with your company. The interview process has made me even more excited about working for your company. If you require any further information from me to help you make a decision, please get in touch. I look forward to hearing from you in due course. Sign off with your name and your contact telephone number.
What's the most impressive thing you've ever seen a candidate do in a job interview?
The most impressive thing I have seen was when I interviewed you for a job role at my company, probably back in 2012. You came along to the interview, and I think you were being interviewed for an admin assistant at my company, and you were really nervous. You were super nervous. This was probably your first ever job interview, and you were very polite, you were professional, but you were too nervous for the job role. And I can remember you left, and I thought to myself, I really liked him, but I probably won't offer him the job. Now, you did something that changed my mind. And you sent me an email a few days later to say you realised the job interview hadn't gone too well because you were nervous. Is it possible for me to have a second interview? And I thought, wow, let me give you another chance. If you had never sent that email to me asking for a second chance, you wouldn't have got the job. And as it transpired, you came the second time, you had a really good interview, you were more confident, you got the job, and then wind forward 10 years later, you're the managing director of my company. So that email made a massive difference to your career. So that was a really impressive thing because it told me one thing, that you really wanted the job, and that was impressive. Thank you very much for watching the Career Success Podcast. Please make sure you subscribe because there will be lots more episodes coming in the future that will help you achieve success in your career. If you want me to help you pass your job interview at the first attempt, then make sure you download my job interview preparation pack. This is a brilliant resource. You can have it in your inbox literally within 2 minutes from now by clicking that link and going through to my website, passmyinterview.com. Thank you for watching. I will see you on the next episode.